everybody. Here's another installment of our course on the theory of improvisation. And my name is Sherman, and I'm coming to you again from Tempotron Studios, Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And we're trying to help you get a leg up off that plateau that seems to never end, where you're just playing scales, you're tired of your soloing, you're not happy with it. And I've occasionally asked students who come to me, what's your biggest problem or biggest heartache about playing guitar all the years you played? Is that when I play a solo, it just sounds lifeless, it sounds pointless, there's no objective, there's no thematic development. Well, all those things come of having a skillful blend, ultimately your blend, of those ingredients that I discussed. And I discussed the pros and cons in last lesson, and there's a chart at the end of that lesson showing that very thing, the pros and cons, how if you lean on one thing to the exclusion of the others, you omit the element that I think the great ingredients, the important ingredients of great solos. And there of course are other techniques and tricks, but these are the foundation building bricks that we want to establish for you. So as usual, I'm going to start out with a little blues in A, and then we'll get to the business at hand. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to throw a couple techniques in that are different. I may even bury the pick for a little bit, and I'm going to throw in some tritones and a couple of other things just so you can see what's on the horizon coming down, and a few more double stops than we use. Okay, so here goes. 2, 3. Okay, a little bit of fooling around, a little bit of showing off, but anyway, such as it is. But anyway, those are some elements. So I threw in some tritones, we'll be talking about those. I threw in a few more double stops, some more bends. I got some theories about bending, some creative string bending. So those are all frostings for the cake. The basic cake are knowing where you are at any moment, knowing what the chord is. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about, start with the major pentatonic. We haven't completely ignored it. We've incorporated it into the blues. We have another column to do today. So this will be the third column, moving in our key of G blues. But before I do that, we talked about the link up of all these scales, and most of you haven't done a lot of work with the major pentatonics, linking them up exclusively. So this will address what do you do if you have what I call an ice cream progression. That's the 1, 6 minor, 4, 5, 7. Okay? So in the key of G, that translates as G, E minor, C, D7. Okay? So I put it on a loop here, and what I want to do is I just want to play the major pentatonics. You can check your chart for this. Go all the way across the neck. So form 2 starts it. Same one we used in our blues. So that's form 2. Form 3 at the 5th fret. speeding along here, but they're on the chart. Form 4 at the 7th fret, and form 5 at the 10th fret. Which brings us to good old form 1 in a new identity at the 12th fret. And of course, since these are on a loop, form 2 occurs again at the 15th fret. And so on. If the neck was 30 feet long, as I always say, it would be the same thing over and over. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play smoothly across this loop, which is the ice cream progression, G, E minor, C, and D7. And I put the loop on. Let's see if it turned out as well as I thought it did. So now I'm just going to meander here. So you got the drift of that, and that's just roughing out the territory, okay? So if you're with me on that, you can add a few bends and dress that up and play pretty melodically just using that. And don't worry about the fingering, whatever occurs to you is fine. Nothing wrong with that, but it sounds pretty boring to me. If I could survive with that and I put some little bit of overdrive on it, it's going to sound okay, and there's soul there, there's emotion, but I'm not saluting the chords as they're going by. And that in a ballad is the same problem that exists for the blues, the same challenge. It's only a problem if you can't solve it. We can solve it. We are solving it right now. But the same challenge, how do I get each chord to sound distinctive? How do I get to make the melody tuck in to that chord? And that's, as they occur, the chord of the moment, as we call it, and target that. The chart I'm going to show you at the end of this block lesson shows a drawing I made. It's called the Improviser's Universe. And you will see it. I'll just show it to you at a distance right now. You'll see it better as we load it. There's a sun, which represents the key center. The planets represent the chords of the moment. And around each chord of the moment, there are little moons, little tensions, as it were, that each chord has exerting upon it. But each chord has its allegiance, fundamental allegiance to that key center. So you can see that everybody in the pecking order is important. But if you just play the key center, that's what I just did. And to me, that's a bit boring, even if I put a lot of feeling into it. So now what I'm going to do is show you by using a couple of arps, and you could even use a little bit of minor pentatonic for spice, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. But try to use a little bit of the arps on each chord. Now that's a little tricky because you don't have a lot of time in there the way I did this, but if you did G, E minor, C, D7, G, E minor, C, D7. So you can hear, if you had a command of those arps, you've got the contour, but again, it's not the solution we're looking for, but it's a good thing to practice, and it's a good element to have, a great element to have in your playing. So let me try my luck at that. I'm just going to jump around as best I can. Here I come, G. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not the way to solo, and you wouldn't want to go and see a band and see me soloing like that. You wouldn't. You'd rather have me doing the pentatonics, but without the arps, you don't tuck into the chord of the moment. So ballads are notorious places for people to realize the deficiencies in their playing. Jimmy Rainey, the great jazz guitarist, said his observation was that the fast tunes are easier in one regard. He said the ballads, you can really separate the great players from the bullshit artists, as he called it. So a ballad, you really gotta say something to each chord as it goes by. The blues is a lot more forgiving, those faster tempos. So we talked about that. There's also double stops on each chord we're going to be dealing with very soon. I want to postpone that just a little bit. So on each chord there's an arp there, and you can refer to the arp section and see if you can grab and go to the next note. So when you play the arps, you're just playing the broken chord. That's what it means in Italian, broken chord. You're just playing the tones. You actually hear it's almost as if you just went, but not quite, because you're doing more than just the chords that are available in the chord, the tones that are available in the chord. You're doing the, or, and so on. So it's not the solution, but when you combine that, it starts to be something. Now the major scale, the G major scale, which overlaps that, which you can achieve by playing the hollow notes on my chart. So G major here, you can work that into here. So if I just played scales through all that, it'll work. But remember my caution about scales. If you use them to excess, your solos sound viney. So let's get viney for a minute here. Here I go. Just gonna play as many G scales as I can. You get the drift. It's interesting. There's a lot of notes there. Does that impress anybody? Not really. So the dexterity is nice, and it's a good feeling. It's a good exercise. So now when I average all those out on your major tunes, your ballads, you thin it out. Maybe I'll put a little bit of overdrive on it. and I'll bend a note here and there. Let's see what I come up with now, and see if you don't hear the kind of solo you'd like to hear on a ballad. Assuming I don't screw up. I don't make those mistakes, do I? Yes, I do. Okay, here we go. So that's the E minor, C. Okay, here I go. I got lost there. Didn't turn the volume up on it enough. I couldn't hear where I was for a second. But anyway, all those excuses aside, you can hear that when I begin to mix that in, that old theory of will it stand on its own without a backing, you can kind of hear it. Kind of see how that starts to come together, all the sloppiness aside there. When you thin that out and just go to the next most logical note, you have a safe haven with the arps, and the scales give you the fluidity that you need, and any licks that occur via bending or a double stop of the chord of the moment, those things all help. Okay, so that's on the board now, so you have that, you understand how you can apply those kind of things to your other challenges that you may have, other kinds of songs. Okay, let's head over to our column, our next installment of the column. We're up now to the third one, the third column, so major will be form 4 at the 7th fret. And then, so that's 7, 10, and so on. And then your minor over the 4 chords will be, and that'll cover you for the C7s and C9s and such. And then you have your mixolydian, which is a really nice one here, starting at the 10th fret. So that's 10, pinky. Next string, 7, 8, 7, 9, 10. Next one, 7, 9, 10. 7, 9. And so on. So there you go. Okay, so over the ones, again, you know the drill. I'm going to do the major pentatonic, now do the minor over the 4s, and then we shall, once I get the G here, we shall come up to the D chords and play the mixolydian, or the arp, which overlaps that, you'll see on the chart. So here we go. Now you go into your minor. Major. Mixolydian, minor, major, mixolydian. So that covers you for the third column. And if you're still with me on that, next time I think I'll recap by combining all three columns together. And I think if you can do that and keep your bearings and not get lost in the shuffle. I get lost all the time on these things, but it's how you find your way. Joe Pass, again quoting him, he used to say, best way to learn is to paint yourself into a corner and scuffle until you find your way out. And that's sort of the way it is. Sometimes you go down a road and you think, where is the next best note? It's there. You just don't know it at that moment, but it is there. You rest assured that you will find it. And persistence with this pays off. You get luckier. The great photographer Karshaw always said, when asked what luck played in the whole thing of photography, he said, certainly a factor, but he said, you ever notice how people who really apply themselves over and over with diligence get luckier as they go? I think there is some truth in that. You find that your luck will increase because there's just something in your muscle memory that maybe serves you, and you have better moments than others. I made a few errors there throughout there. It's going to happen. But if you get all bent out of shape every time you make a mistake and you dwell on that, you're never going to take chances. I'd rather hear somebody take chances and play exciting music from the heart with a few mistakes than I would somebody just playing a safely constructed solo. I've done them, and I wish I could just be more relaxed. You have to be who you are. I mean, if that's the kind of person you are, you're going to have to be that. But I think inject a little bit of creativity, a little bit of more of that right brain, let it happen kind of thing, and don't analyze everything too much. Right now we have to analyze it, but once you're in the moment of playing, I'd like you to just internalize this stuff to a degree that you're not really thinking about it quite so much. Just let it flow. And if you hit a snag, then stop, analyze what went wrong, fix it, and then go right back to that part of the brain that just says, come on, let's just have fun. Because if you lose the fun element of it, I don't think I want to hear that kind of playing. People coming out of schools, Oscar Peterson got all bent out of shape in an interview in Keyboard magazine, as great an improviser as he was, and he took issue with the fact that people coming out of schools know all these scales, but they're not leaving any memorable music behind. I think there is something to that if you don't live, Charlie Parker said, if you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. So whether you're playing a horn or a guitar or piano, you have to kind of find a way to internalize these things. And that's a very verbose way of saying it, but it needs to be said that all the technical stuff has its place, but in the moment of execution, you have to just let it flow. And when you think too much, you're not going to let the music, those little moments between the notes, are going to be forced, and you don't want that. Okay, so I guess we're nearing the end of this installment, and I hope this was informative for you. I hope it helps you get to the next level. We've got a lot of things on the horizon, so stay with us and take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.